All right, welcome to another episode of Popp'n Politics, and it's post-election time. So we got a dope cast to talk about that. Well, I guess we in election purgatory. I don't know what to call it. It depends on who you ask. So we gonna talk about that a little bit. We got just a crazy cast. I'm so happy that I got the resources to put something like this together. I was telling Kev the other day, I'm like, man, I'm so excited about this one because I know this one's gonna be fire. You feel me? So I'm gonna let people introduce themselves. I'm gonna tell y'all the order because I see y'all like lined up at the top of my computer. So it's gonna be Quentin, Kevin, Chris.
Cool. So thank you for having me again. My name is Quentin R. Giles. What do you want me to tell the people? What do the people need to know? Because we about to talk.
Look, man, everything. Hey, plug everything, man.
All right. So I'm grateful to be here, to occupy this space with these other brilliant Black men. I think we definitely need to do more things like this. But I am a political commentator. I would say a media enlightenment specialist, if you will. I spend a lot of my time trying to educate people on just the goings on of what's happening in our news day and explaining it in a way that is easily digestible for them to understand and make educated decisions about their political futures, whether that be how they vote or who they support. I also do some work here in Houston, Texas. We'll flip it one day. It was always a dream shot and in arm's reach. If that made any sense, here with a civil rights organization where we really just focus on advocacy in underserved communities. So super excited to be here, super excited, especially to talk about that election purgatory, because I have thoughts on that, but I'll hold them until we get there.
All right, Kevin.
It's hard to come after, but y'all know who it is, man. It's just regular old me, Kevin Brown. Friendly neighborhood street teacher, just an educator, all lover of all things political, and just here excited about this podcast.
And Mr. Scott.
Chris Scott. Anybody that knows me, Chris Scott from Detroit, Michigan. Always got to rep my hometown, no matter where I'm at in the country. Is everything that made me who I am today to survive politics. Incredibly excited to be on this podcast because I feel like this dope lineup, especially anytime you get Houston and Detroit together. I feel like it's an outstanding mix together. Yep. It's a perfect recipe.
Speak on it. Mm-hmm.
Bad. And I'm Quinn from East Oakland, California.
You gotta say it now. You gotta put it out there now.
I ain't from the Bay. I ain't from California. I'm from East Oakland. All right. So I think we just gonna dive on in. So the election happened, right? It for sure happened.
It happened.
Whatever it was, it happened. I actually think that it was good that it kind of drew out a little bit. I think that was the safest thing for it. I think if it had ended like that, Trump had just lost just like that, man, I don't know, man. I think them streets would have been towed up, because they had to wait a couple days, cool down a little bit. They had to accept that maybe, I think everybody had to accept, well, maybe we can lose this thing. I don't think nobody went into the election after that first day and was like, we got it. I don't know. I know me. I'm waking up every 2 hours, checking the phone. I'm looking. He down 400 in Pennsylvania, but they saying he gonna win it. Trump coming back in Arizona. Georgia narrowing down. Nevada, I don't know, a couple thousand people separate that the whole time, man. None of them made no sense. So and all of a sudden now Biden winning everything, and I'm sure that Trump wish he had told some people to mail in some ballots, right? Mm-hmm. But you know, what y'all think, you know, how did y'all feel about it? You know, whoever want to go, you know.
I just started. It didn't feel real to me until Michigan went down. When Michigan went down, I was like, oh, like it's getting real. It's getting real. So when Michigan went down, then it was like the domino effect just happened, just bow, 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 and I was just like, oh, okay, all right, we're gonna see. All right, we're gonna see how this go.
Right. What about y'all? Hey, Quentin had an update every 30 minutes, man. Look.
I did. That's why man, this was the longest 4 days. Excuse me. That was the longest 4 days, 4 or 5 days, however long it was. It felt like forever. For me, I would say I went into it 80% confident that Biden was gonna win. I'm not even gonna lie. I left room to be wrong. But I was 80% sure he was gonna pull this thing out. It's interesting what you say that you think it was good that it bled out the way it did, and I don't know if that's the correct word, but just to tamper feelings down, because I never thought about it from that aspect. Me personally, I would have liked it to be more sure, because then I would have said, you know, there would be no reason for these frivolous lawsuits. Because there would be no case of this ongoing mail-in ballot situation and votes popping up. So, you know, for me, I was excited when Fox News called Arizona. I think that's when it really got real for me. And I thought
about that.
Yeah, that's when it turned for me. I was like, oh, and nobody else was calling it. So I'm like, okay, all right, so we could do some things. Okay, I see a little John McCain revenge over there in Arizona. Okay, cool. I like that. I like how that looks.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, I like how that John McCain revenge and that Stacey Abrams revenge is just linking up. That's, you know what that's called? Coalition building. That's what that is. So that's when that thing was real for me, and it was ironic that Fox News called Arizona, because I kept saying, I'm like, bro,
he was mad.
He was mad, but it didn't work out this way. But what I kept waiting for, and I'm gonna stop after this. When Fox News called Arizona, I was like, wait a minute, nobody else is. So that means if Georgia go ahead and flip, if Nevada come in, like if any other combination of states comes in first, Fox News would have been one of the only people to call the race for Biden.
Right.
Because CNN and MSNBC didn't call Arizona until 3:00 today.
Yeah,
so
you ain't lying.
I'm like, bro, how this would be the perfect movie if they were the ones to just shut it down. But you know, it didn't happen that way. But I'm still happy about how it happened.
You know, I'm close. It's been a roller coaster of a week. I got through election night.
And I don't think you told them people what you do either.
No. So as a national political director for the Collective PAC, largest Black political PAC in the country, endorse at every single level of government, local, state, federal, don't matter. If you Black, you progressive, you probably getting endorsed by us. It was a little bit nerve-wracking on election night, because when you looked at them election day returns, you're like, hold up, we have record turnout. What you talking about? And then when I woke up in the morning and my team was waking me up and they were sending me the texts and they were sending me the numbers, I was just like, okay, this is what I was seeing. But I think for me, the validating point as a kid from Michigan, as a kid from Detroit, remembering how much flack Detroit and Michigan took for 2016, I didn't agree it was our fault. But because of 10,000 votes, we got hammered of, Black people didn't vote. Let me get this straight. Other races could not, I'm not going to call them out. Other races, I'm going to be politically correct. Other races cannot vote in the suburbs. But 10,000 Black folks that don't vote in Detroit, Michigan, that the way that you want, it's all on our fault. But then we have this election. Black people in Atlanta, Black people in Detroit, Black people in Philadelphia. I'm sorry if you blamed us for everything in 2016. Give us all our flowers in 2020 because you got in because of the Black vote. Period. I don't want to hear any question. You got this because our people, everything powered us to do what we needed to do. Period.
Yeah. And to that point, so or go ahead, Quinn, if you got something to say.
No, I would just tack on a little bit to that. To his point, we might want to ask white women what happened. Because we saw your numbers on
but you know what though,
and how about just y'all go ask them what happened. Like Biden pulled the win out, but a good amount of y'all still voted for Trump. So what happened?
That's crazy. That was crazy.
That's not surprising to me though. I mean, if you that's not surprising.
I mean, to me.
Why?
I was a little surprised.
My thing is, I'm like, how can you continuously vote against your self-interest? Like, this man's president.
Are they voting against their self-interest though?
Let's have a conversation about this.
Like, are they though? Okay. I hate to be the guy, right?
All right.
But when you think of like if you talking about a white supremacist supported president, right? The ideals, the Christopher Columbus Day and all that.
Right.
I mean, that's their self-interest. I mean, if it is, right? It's not like they've been oppressed, but it's different, right? It's different because they're still in that group, right? It's not like the power structure benefits them, right? So, and they're raised in it. So why wouldn't you? That's their self-interest. Not saying all of them. Look, bro, white women. I know some white women that are awesome, all that. But I mean, just if you just strip away the personality of it and the bare bones generalization, that is not in their it's not voting against their self-interest. It's voting in it. So I would expect that the majority of white women would be on that side because it's just kind of in their interest. You know what I'm saying?
I think maybe, and Kevin, please don't let me put words in your mouth. But I was just sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, why was I surprised? And maybe this is where you were too. I wasn't like shocked and appalled, like. I didn't have to clutch my pearls that it happened, but I was a little surprised, and I think that could be because, at least for me, you view women in a certain way, like we ascribe certain characteristic traits to women, right? Compassionate, caring, loving, and so when you see a man that is propped up by white supremacy and encourages and invites it and tells it to stand by, I think you think this, you couldn't possibly, vote for that. Like where is the love and the care and the, so I think that, and maybe this is something to be explored. White women keep getting that pass and keep getting away with it because we do ascribe those characteristic traits to women, period. And maybe not all women have it.
So I'm not gonna put it on just women in general, but when I look at it, and there are some things where I'm black and white, and politics is one of the things where I think there are a lot of things that are black and white. Black people had a chance to elect a black president. What do? We elect a black president. We come out in force. White women, in general, when I think about the conversations that I had after being someone that works in the system, everything else, and it was the conversation of Hillary Clinton to a lot of people, not just black women, white women in general, were, oh, this is somebody, they're feminists, they were part of the movement, everything. But when you had the chance to vote for them, what did you do?
Okay.
And so I felt like it was a preface. I remember I had a conversation in 2017 with one of my mentors. I said, the biggest thing that worries me about Kamala Harris, not that she isn't everything capable. What I'm worried about is clash of people didn't show up for Hillary Clinton that probably should have showed up for her. And what are you to think that a Black woman might get this position before you? And that was my biggest concern.
That's a thing.
Not because Kamala wasn't qualified. Not that we all know Hillary Clinton, whether or not she had her deficiency, she was qualified for the position. But when it comes down to a breakdown of who you're going to vote for, you know our race is going, oh, we got a shot at it, we're going to go for it. And you're a Democrat, and even if I don't agree with everything, you're progressive on a lot of things, I'm going to go for that. But what happened in 2016 was that you had what was supposed to be the majority of the population that made a choice against, quote unquote, their self-interest of all the conversation of my granddaughter, my daughter, my niece, all of that. It didn't matter to you. And so my biggest concern coming to this election, whether or not Kamala was the nominee for president or she was nominee for vice president, was the backlash of that. You knew in 2016, the whole population dismissed the fact that you had a chance to make history. And the fact that a Black woman might make history before that, that was a scary thought to me, honestly.
I mean, so that's a thing. And I think that that when we discuss things like that and you think about like the suffrage movement and stuff like that, while Black women constantly pushed that movement, I don't think that it was always to their benefit, right? They were kind of always pushed to the back of the line because in the end of the day, you still Black. You know what I'm saying? It's still that kind of race grouping, right? In the end of the day, if you think about that hierarchy, especially when you think about right, white supremacy, and I know it. I do got some followers that don't believe in white supremacy, right? So when I'll break it down like this, right? When you think of the context that Western Europe took over the entire world, right? So to do that and uphold that power, you have to create a idea and stereotype that you're the standard, right? And everybody needs to be like you in order to be quote unquote civilized, right? Because if they were better, then they wouldn't have got taken over, right? You know what I'm saying? And so when we talk about white supremacy, you're not just talking about Black people. They took over India. They took over Asia. You know what I'm saying? There's no part of the world that they didn't go and take, right?
Right about that.
When you talk about the context of Western Europe, and that's why people talk about Western civilization. When you hear people say the West, they mean Western Europe and Western Europe ideas. When you put America in that group, because America came from Western Europe, it's offspring from Britain, right? So just, I know it's some people that don't believe in white supremacy, so you got to break it down into it sounds like this huge thing, but it's history. It's not like some crazy nut job thing. It's history, and it takes certain things to maintain power, right? So and within that context, it's in white women's Black self-interest to, move in that lane, and I mean, and I'm sure Hillary feels like it probably should have been her. There's probably some other women that feel like it should have been them. I'm sure some women feel like that it's that it's a what's the word, affirmative action hire type stuff, right? Because in the end of the day, when Clyburn pushed Biden in South Carolina, don't think it wasn't no conversations like, hey man, the Black Caucus is gonna give you a couple candidates and pick one, right? if you want this stuff to go on, right? Because they had her, they had Kamala, they had the lady from Florida, the one that was a police officer. I think she in the House of Representatives. And it was another woman. Can't think of who it was. Oh, Bottoms. Then you had people wanted Stacey Abrams too, right? So those were the choices. And Elizabeth Warren and Klobuchar and all them had pulled out. They was like, look, just get a black woman. Just get a black woman.
I like to go on record. My fist pump was not for Klobuchar. It was for Warren.
I like Liz, man. Liz got some good policy out there. She gets stuff done.
Look, I want to go back to this point of in 2016, we had an excellent chance to elect a woman president, whether or not you fully agreed with everything.
I didn't like her.
Regardless, I think we can all agree she was 10 times better than Donald Trump.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely.
We would not be dealing with the pandemic that we're dealing with in the way that we're dealing with it if we had Hillary Clinton. And even if you didn't agree with all of her policies, and I say that as somebody that works in the system of you have to respect, she did everything to work all sides of the party line. Y'all remember she was vehemently, you remember that primary against Barack Obama in 08? That it was nasty. So for you to make a recovery for Secretary of State, I gotta give you credit for that.
I'll give her that, but I will say this, right?
It's not that you were perfect. It's that you know what? I'm not gonna go on record for some parts I want to say on this. What I will say is, I think Hillary did a lot that people don't give her credit for. I will just say that when you look at her resume, she was every bit of accomplished that had ran.
I mean, she was the most. I mean, I think she was probably the most qualified person.
Decorated enough. You shouldn't. Outside of you email hearing, she handled it flawlessly. But I just feel like when we look at the history of our country, we're always going to pick something that's controversial for our country. Period.
I'll say this one because I know you about to go, Quinn. I know you about to say something, but yeah. I know I said it like that's why. But I'll say this about the 2016 campaign, right? Hillary Clinton knew that the Democratic Party was split. Instead of picking Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren for her vice president, she picked this guy from Virginia that nobody had ever heard of before, this white guy that speaks Spanish. Who is this guy? It is two sides of the party, and you don't pick a known progressive person, and she just didn't. And so when you do stuff like that, knowing that it's a problem, it's your fault. Period. That's how I felt about it. Like, you could have just picked Elizabeth Warren. It would have been two women on the ticket. And no matter what you think, they probably would have won because everybody would have been unified in that idea. You wouldn't have got no Republicans, but you would have got every single Democrat you could possibly find. Because I understand not picking Bernie. Bernie got too big of a movement. He been in the Senate too long. He might not go with you on everything. Liz got good policy. She progressive. But she understands things, the bankers bills and stuff. You know what I'm saying? She got real good policy, and she seemed like she will fall in line to get to the next step.
But I think you're underestimating the point of in 2016 and what I think was still revealed with how many votes Trump got in 2020. It's a very country. It is very divided.
She also didn't do no like rural deep South campaign.
No. I agree with all of
that. Like very liberal New York, California campaign.
I think we underestimate how divided this country actually still is. And people don't want to talk to that point. It is I think as much as Joe Biden won this, I look at Trump got 70 million votes, which means there are even more people that felt embodied to come out and say,
Right.
I'm okay with this. And that's what bothers me. I'm going to
Yeah.
shut up there. I've talked too much, but I'm just going to say,
You
like, we cannot ignore that factor.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, because what I was going to try to do was bring us back up to today, which I think you just did with that last point. And what I wanted to say was, I think we are underestimating that as well, because I was going to ask a question in relation to like a Hillary versus a Biden, and are we really ready for that type of radical change for a woman to occupy that seat? Bakari Saylor said something the other night to speak to that 70,000. And I've been chewing on it for a minute, because I'm like, no, I don't think so. But I'm like, no, he probably kind of right. And what he was saying was, we unintentionally fooled ourselves into thinking that we were so far ahead because we got Barack Obama elected twice. But what we see is that Barack Obama was really the anomaly when we thought Trump was the anomaly.
Right.
And Trump is not the anomaly. And so I've been chewing on that, because it's like, part of me is like, you sure right. And then the other part is like, no. We've come so far. But yeah, that is the thing, that Trump is not the anomaly. He is the manifestation. And like Van Jones said a couple years back, he is the backlash to that anomaly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my piece.
Extra point on this. Give me 2 seconds. If Obama was all of that, and I love Obama, worked my first campaign with Obama, what was the backlash in 2010? We lost everything. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We had white Democrats that from it. And it showed I think it was a precursor of the divide that we were going to have in 2016 and 2020. We got to see our true character of where we were as a country back in 2010. Because as much as people love the idea of change, when you talk about change and you talk about accepting change, how many people were ready for it? How many people embraced it? How many politicians embraced it? And when we talk about presidents, anybody that had any type of government class knows president is ruled by checks and balance. You don't have Congress, you can't pass nothing. You could do executive orders as much as you want, but the real power lies in Congress, which we didn't have control of for 8 years of Obama's presidency, period. So how much could he actually really do, even if he wanted to? And that's the same thing for Biden. We don't win these Senate seats. What do you think he can actually do in his first 4 years if we don't get control of the Senate in Georgia?
It's gonna be a struggle, because man, that Mitch McConnell, man, that girl, you could say what you want, man. That man is a genius.
like a fox, I'm telling you.
I read some of that book, man. I'm like, this guy is.
Man, he got a book.
Yeah, it's called The Long Game. It's about how they took all them judge seats.
I don't even want to read that.
I'm not reading it.
Hey, look, I'll be curious, man.
Don't be depressing.
I want to know how they move, man. I want to know how they think.
Right. If you want to know your enemy, you got to study him, right?
Right.
Oh man. Yeah.
Kev, what's your thoughts on this?
Man, I think both of y'all made good points, as far as, especially like with 2010 and everything that happened then. I mean, it just, you saw it. Like you saw the snowball about to roll down the hill. It's like, oh no, it's coming. And I think we kind of fooled ourselves, because I was with Quentin. I was like, oh yeah, no, we're so far past that, and this is the last stand of racism, and these just outlier people and acting. We had Obama come, and there's going to be more change, and then it's like, oh, but wait a minute. Mm-hmm. That Obama was the anomaly. 2008 was an anomaly. Like, that happened, and that was a wonderful time, but that was And when you look back at the history of things, that was a fluke. Like, you know what I'm saying?
He was
like,
the perfect candidate.
He was.
I think he spoiled a lot of us too. Cause I look at candidates, I'm like, he ain't no.
Nah, you're not.
but everybody want to be Obama. They want to have his cadence, all of that.
Right.
Oh, won't that Pete Buttigieg steal an Obama cadence in a minute?
Man, come on now.
Who was I talking to Pete Buttigieg about, man? That
bruh. I don't want to bash on Pete Buttigieg too much because I can go all day because I don't really anyway. But he will take an Obama cadence in a minute.
Quickly.
Hey, bruh, how do you talk?
I think that Buttigieg was very electable. I think that his sexuality was the problem. I don't think that America is ready.
No. Oh, see, and I view it, I view that completely differently. I thought his sexuality is what pushed him forward.
You think that? You think so?
Yeah, that's me too.
You think that too, Kim?
What?
Because I think he was...
Hold on.
Go ahead. Go.
You mean to tell me a small town mayor, white man, under 50, was a serious contender for the presidency when you still had a Joe Biden, a Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. I'm talking about you got powerhouses. What Pete Buttigieg was, and I don't mean to reduce him in any way because I respect his humanity, but what Pete Buttigieg was more of the same with a different kind of sparkle on it. And I don't mean sparkle in an incendiary way.
Yeah.
His sexuality was a new change. That would have been something that we did not have and that we really weren't even thinking about. There is no doubt in my mind that is what created such buzz and spark around him, and that people, as we move into this more inclusive society, bought into. If you are telling me that you would take Pete Buttigieg's sexuality away and Pete Buttigieg would have still, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't. No. What else?
Overtar, Cory Booker, like the only reason he was on that stage was because of his sexuality.
Right. Like, and that's not coming at him. I'm just coming at the structure that we have.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that.
Bro, I just looked at the people you had on stage. And I was just like, he seems out of place.
How are you here? Like, how did you get here?
Mayor Buttigieg, where did you come from? Like, you know, like, well, yeah, man, it definitely wholeheartedly. I agree. Like, I just think that it was because of his sexuality, and he tried to kind of boost him. And I think that won't be the last time we see him. I don't know. I don't know what to make of him yet. I don't know if he's genuine. I just think that, you know, he flip-flopped on a lot of stuff. I mean, especially with, like, you know, I kind of lean a little bit more progressive, and I like the Medicare for all stuff. Like, I was like, yeah, like, let's get people healthcare, the stuff that they need. And he kind of flip-flopped on that. So I was just like, man, look, I don't know. Like, are you gonna be a donor's mouthpiece, or are you gonna be a genuine candidate? Like, I don't know. Like let's see what you're about, Pete Buttigieg. But I just feel like they boosted him because of his sexuality.
So I think when I look at it, I think it's a couple of things. And I remember during the primaries, I want to say it was the New York Times brought up an interesting article, but it was, if Black candidate was the mayor of a second-tier city, would they be considered for the president?
I don't even think South Bend is second
If
tier.
you had been mayor of Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, as a Black person, would you have been considered for the presidency to make that leap? And I think that's where people got the divide. Not that Pete Buttigieg, I'm going to give him this. I think he's intelligent. I respect anybody that served in the military, coming from a military family. But I think part of where people ran into the problem was not even sexuality. It was, if it was a Black person, would y'all even give them a shot on stage right now with you? Black women and Black men that are U.S. senators that y'all will barely give mic time to. And I think that's where people really start drawing the contrast of, so what do you want? And that's where we had to have the real conversation of somehow like a Cory Booker, a Kamala Harris. You don't have to agree with everything they say, but they're both a force to deal with in the United States Senate. Yeah. More so than a lot of United States senators. They don't hold back. They make their intentions known. And for them to so easily get dismissed in the primary as soon as they do bad in a region, I think it speaks to the volumes of the things that we still have to fix within the party structure of the system. Because we are not, in an ideal world, my job, I shouldn't even have my job because my organization shouldn't even have to exist to bring equity and parity to the political system. Yet and still, it exists because we know we don't have that. And we know you will not evaluate us on the same scale, period. And that's all I have to say on that.
Well, so I think we're all saying the same thing, though. I think that's what I heard, but we could move on. Yeah, we can move on because it could take a left turn, and we ain't trying to go left. But yeah. But back to like where we are here with the 2020 and stuff. I had somebody, I was checking my Facebook. I'm really interested to see if old buddy is going to respond. He had not responded yet. Because I posted something. I ain't gonna do all that. But I posted something and I was just like, okay, Biden won, relax. Me, y'all still talking about how Jordan played in 97 with the flu and still hype about it, and that had no real world implications on your life, but you want me to relax 2 days later. Silence me. Hit the you about to lose your job dance, right? So that's what I post. So, and I've been seeing a lot of this, and this is a guy I went to school with. So I'm like, what's going on? So he commented that, it's not over, bro. The media doesn't decide the winner. And we've been seeing a lot of that, like a lot of that. The media doesn't decide the winner. And I'm just like, okay, let me give you some language. Let me help you. Can I help you for a second? Because what we're talking about is media making projections. If there was a real case to be made about this current election and mail-in ballots and all of that, one, you would have seen gatekeepers in the Republican Party, old school lawyers come out the woodworks. You would have saw that Bush v. Gore legal team reassemble, 3 of them on the high court. Yeah. But you would have saw that coalition reassemble. And not only that, you can look at the current lawsuits and litigation that this, this campaign is bringing about. So you could talk about a lot of stuff on Twitter, but when you get in that court of law before that judge,
you got to come with paperwork.
And that judge asks for that proof, and there's nothing there, and these lawsuits continue to get dismissed. Stop talking to me about what the media says. Stop talking to me about what's on Twitter. And I'm just seeing a lot of that. And this person looks like us to a certain extent. So
so
I'm just baffled at the amount of, I don't know if it's willful ignorance, genuine confusion, propensity to accept propaganda. Like I don't know where this falls. So I'm just wondering if y'all are seeing that as well.
So today I was saying, and we're gonna get to you, Kev, because I said you was about to say something. Today I was on Angela Stratton little Instagram or whatever, right? And she had posted, Trump, I'm gonna give $5 billion to black people, and then basically implying that we voted against our own interests. And I'm like, all I said was Biden plan is better. 250 comments on my post under her post. Prove it. It's crazy stuff. Black people attacking me, white folk, everybody, to the point that I really just was like, man, let me go ahead and I summarized that entire plan with a pen and pad. Went through everything.
You had
every line. But I mean, I think it just, like you said, is some willful ignorance. Some of it is, I think that this is really let you know that some people don't like policy. Because a lot of people was like, what does it say? Where is it? Some like, bruh, you got a supercomputer in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to explain it to you? Like, you're not even gonna come at me with a substantive conversation. You want me to explain it to you when you have a supercomputer in your hand right now, and we could clearly see that. And at that, I did break down some of it in the initial conversation, because the thing about it is that in the platinum plan, he said the 500 billion, right? So right, so that 500 billion is government contracting money, right? So me personally, and Kev, you know this, but I worked for a business incubator that focuses on government contracting in Huntsville, Alabama, which is all federal contracting. This is where they making the bombs. That super hypersonic, supersonic missile that the president and them talking about, they make it right down the street. You know what I'm saying? I've been in cybersecurity rooms and brand new. I've been there, right? Government contracting ain't easy. So if you given, first of all, it wasn't earmarked 500 billion for Black people, because first of all, that ain't gonna happen. Second of all, even if you said that you had some kind of requirement to subcontract it out or whatever, there is not going to be a way to spend all that money without you allocating at least half of it just to training on how to get federal contracting dollars, right? How to put all that stuff together, because it's not an easy task, right? And if you putting it like that, then it's not impacting the Black community hard, because if you got the capability and resources to put together a business that can operate on a federal contracting level, that's not helping the poorest of the poor Black people. It's not. That's not what we need. It's a plus, put that as part of a plan, but don't make that your whole plan. That's crazy. But it's just me.
I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead, Kev. Go ahead,
No, please, Kevin. Go ahead.
Well, I think that I just think that, like, you can say it's willful ignorance. I think it's just, me personally, I say it's just pure ignorance. I think people just don't they don't want to talk about politics. They don't want to talk about policy. They just want to look at people, look at the things that they say, and then go off of that. And I'm just like, okay, but you gotta, like, as a history teacher, like, I had a conversation with a cat the other day, and we were just talking about, like, just presidents in the past, and he says, "Oh, well, Lincoln didn't care for Black people." And then I'm like, I don't care what he cared for. What he did directly affected people that look like you and me. So ultimately, like at the end of it, LBJ, we know LBJ didn't like no doubt. Come on now. Like, anybody would have posted, no, LBJ wouldn't, he didn't like Black folks. But at the same time, he put pen to paper.
He put pen to paper. And that's how you make lasting change. The pen gotta be on the paper. Exactly. Or it's just talk. They could pull it back the next day.
Right. Pen mightier than the sword, man. I'm telling you. Like, so when you put pen to paper, that changes lives. So lives were changed by the pens, like by the pens of these men, that were in this office. They signed policy, and policy went and changed lives. That's why I say, like, and I had an argument with a cat the other day. He was just like, "Oh man, well, this stuff don't affect my life." I'm like, even if you choose not to participate in the system, ultimately the system affects what you got going on. Right. So I just can't leave that up to chance. I can't leave somebody else to make that decision for me, when the only actual power I have, by choosing not to exercise that power, like, no, like I got to do that. It just don't sit right with me not to. But go ahead, Q.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was just sitting here thinking, like, obviously we're all talking. I'm not gonna assume to know who you voted for, but I got a good idea. It's dangerous,
That's
but I'm
out of the bag.
assumption. Yeah,
Right.
I'm assumption. Just looking at the numbers coming out, some of us didn't do the same thing, and I mean males, black males particularly.
I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
I know a lot of.
You do? Yeah. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
I was talking to my brother yesterday, and just trying to try to unpack it with him. He was on something else. He's a little more radical than I am. I air quote that stuff because some stuff we talk about is really not radical. It's just anyway.
Common sense, right?
Yeah, but I'm just wondering. I've been wondering, like, okay, obviously we could bash these men, we could beat up on them, we could ask why they made their decision, in trying to understand why they made that decision. But my point to him yesterday, and what I want to put on the floor today, is how do we then speak to that 20% of us that went over there? Because it's easy to dismiss them, but it could catch on. And there could be more of us that continue to do that. And so that would be voting in our own, against our self-interest, right? And that would continue to cause divides and chasms within our own community. So I don't have the answer for it. I've just been laying it on everybody's table. Okay, Chris got the answer. Come on, Chris.
Got the answer.
Tag me in.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start with this. One of the, and it shell shocked me. Grew up in Detroit. Still go up to Detroit quite a bit. Still, if I'm in the city, get my hair cut from the same barber that cut my hair back when I was a kid. And it blew me how many black men in Detroit voted for Trump in 2016. And part of the reason was the state didn't listen to us. The city didn't listen to us. Even though we felt like he was a little bit of racist, like at least somebody seemed like they wanted to listen to us. And then when we got to this year, I remember I did an interview. It was for NBC Nightly News, and it was also for, I want to say is Benedict College, that I did a radio interview for. And then we're talking about the black men going for it. And I wanted to, I don't think we give that 80% credit that actually voted for change, have like stability, to have integrity, to have a black woman in government. We don't give them credit, which created the problem that we have in the first place, because they feel discredited. And I feel like part of that extra 2% that went over 2 to 5% that went over to Trump this year, you feel discredited. You heard all of this about black women. And let's be honest, black women, exceptional. But as a black man, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do think there is an ego part with certain parts of black men that can get easily fragile if they feel like you're not talking to them, you're not catering to them, even if they know you're in their best interest, because at the end of the day, they're still human. And last time I checked, almost any man, probably about at least 40% of us, have a fragile ego when it comes to talking to what their needs are. And so when I think we're having this conversation with black men, even though 80% of us voted, I think for the Democrats, what it comes down to is like, when you're appealing to that 20%, let's look at why that 20% left. They felt unengaged. They felt like you weren't speaking to them. They felt like all you gave a damn about Black women. And again, I'm not pitting us against Black women. We have to be together. And let's be honest, even if you don't like what I say, Black women been carrying a lot of Black votes for years.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
They have the coalitions, they have the
We cannot
organizations,
lie
they
about
have
that.
they
You
got
don't
it.
have to like it, it is a fact. But when it comes to Black men, we have to do a better job of being on our coalition the way we need to. And that goes twofold. It not only goes with voting, but I remember Black women should probably be this right now. You got 3 Black men that ran the race, got in late as hell, end up splitting all the vote. Black woman loses. Everybody hates the current mayor of St. Louis. You could have had a Black woman, but you split the vote at the last minute. Because of why? What was your reason? There was no reason to jump in the race. And I think it doesn't have to be a us versus Black women. It has to be of us and our common interests. And I think at least millennials and Gen Z, we get that shit. Yeah. And I rarely cuss when I'm on a political platform. I'm going to say this. We get that shit. We have no excuse for that shit. We understand we shouldn't have the same fucking problems and excuse all the expletives out my mouth. We should not have the same problems.
That you can cuss on my podcast.
Period.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
I mean, I know a lot of the Black men that I know that either went for Trump or didn't vote, because I know quite a few, right? Being honest, right? A lot of it had to do with economics, and the reason that they kind of went around the idea that Trump is racist and white supremacist and all that stuff is the simple fact of they feel like all of them are racist, right? So when you see white supremacy, you're not surprised by the white supremacy because all of them are white supremacists. We heard it all through this election. Biden ain't no different. Trump do whoop, right? And if you stand it up on his face, and it ain't true, but the reason that I personally would say it ain't true is just because of benefits within party, right? Because success for Biden looks different from success for Trump just because of the affiliations. When you run Democrat, you gotta be accepting to LGBT and minorities. If you ain't got that, you ain't getting in. Period. Sure. So you have to be accepting to those two spaces, or you just not in. Right? But when you run GOP, it's white, conservative, and everybody else is extra. Right? And within that, it gets very far right. It does, right? You could get real in there. And especially with this international push for nationalism, white nationalism, right? That idea of white supremacy and all that, that's not just here. It's every country got that stuff going on, with the right and the left. And so success for Biden looks different. Even if they was the same person, they would have to move different, because in the end of the day, if Biden, it's certain things that if Biden don't do, he gonna lose that House and Senate, and just ain't nothing gonna happen.
Right. That's true. I think that brings us to an interesting point in the conversation. Just because, we're talking about that percentage of Black men who didn't vote for, who voted for Trump and who kind of felt disenfranchised by the Dems. So to the ones that did vote for Biden, my next question to you all would definitely be, how do we go about holding them accountable for the things that they said they would do for for um for the Black community and for just for
Talking about the
as for
GOP or
America
the
as a whole.
Democrats? I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're talking
Wait,
about
are
the,
you? Yeah.
who
So
you talking about?
how do we hold the Dems accountable? How do we hold
Okay.
the Democrats accountable for the things that they said they would do for the Black community, for just for America as a whole? You know, how do we go about like seriously doing that? Because I mean, we don't want it to be a lot of lip service. I mean, ultimately, I always say you can't vote. You vote for someone, you don't vote against someone, because voting for someone energizes you. Voting against someone is just fear, and usually fear doesn't win.
Mm.
But in this case, I mean, it might have been a little bit of both. I can't say I was just all out Biden supporter, but at the same time, I am very happy that he won or whatever. But at the same time, I really want to hold him accountable to the things that he said that he would do. So how do we go about doing that?
Either one of Quentin's y'all want to go before I go? Because I'm gonna get on this.
All right. Well, then before you get on your soapbox, then I'm just going, since I did analyze the Biden Black plan, just give some of my highlights. Right. So there's a couple things that in for people watching and listening, if you Google "lift every voice Biden," this plan will come up. It's long, you could skim through it. It's been up since February. I know, Quinn, the "lift every voice" thing sounds a little weird, but it ain't no worse than the platinum plan. And I personally felt disrespected by the platinum plan. What you think, it got to be shiny for me to look at it? What you trying to say? But but if you want to look it up and you watching or listening whenever you listen, that's how you gonna find it. And so there was a couple key highlights in there, right? So he said he's gonna double the CDFI funding. That's basically, CDFIs are banks that focus on community development. So low income in lending in low to moderate income areas, stuff like that, right? He said that he's gonna increase Black Fed contract participation, but he gonna add training too. That's what I was saying before, that you gotta add that training because a lot of people aren't ready for that. Something that was really big in here that nobody talked about, but I think is gonna be the big game changer. Any federal research grant that goes to universities that have an endowment of over $1 billion has to partner or subcontract at least 10% of the contract to HBCUs. That's a game changer. And the reason that it's a game changer, and for people that didn't go to school or they've never been to a HBCU, didn't go to a HBCU, the reason that it's a game changer is HBCUs are in Black neighborhoods, and everybody from the janitor to the president is Black. So if it's 300 jobs, 295 of them is Black folk. So that's an important game changer, and the people that are going to be helping on that research are going to be Black students. It's just what it is, right? So when you fund those, that Black economy starts to spin around. He also said $10 billion for 200 centers of excellence. I had to read into it. I didn't know what they was, but it seems like they're going to be located at HBCUs, I guess, and they're going to be used as research incubators and connect students to fields and stuff like that. So we said this $10 billion for 200 of those. They said they're going to do rural broadband. They got some money for that. So all the rural, that's not really a Black thing. That's an everybody thing, because I think that white America really benefit
the
from
rural
that.
community is struggling hard.
Man, look, bro, I went to my girlfriend's house. I couldn't even answer my dang phone. My girlfriend family house couldn't even get to the phone, man. Look.
Crazy, man.
I didn't know it was like that.
It is, man, for real.
What else? You know, you got the money for he said he's gonna improve the CRA. So if you know anything about banking, that needs improvement. When a bank comes to your community, they are required to do things for the community. So that means low interest loans, that means grants. They're required to do that. If the bank does not do that, then they're not able to open other branches and stuff like that. And that's something that gets scaled, I think, every 5 years. So that's the Community Reinvestment Act. And it has to do with banks. And he said that he's gonna kind of resurface that. He said the Paycheck Fairness Act. So I think that what they're looking to do is make sure that people are getting equal pay based on race, and I'm sure that's gonna roll over to sex as well. I'm not sure how they're gonna regulate it because two people could be at a job, one person get paid more because they better, but also we know it's a lot of discrimination in that black men, black women should make way less than white men and stuff like that. So it is that pay gap. It was a couple. So, fair housing. So I work in fair housing, right? This stuff that Trump then put out that executive order 13950 and stuff like that, man, it's lawsuits and all different kinds of stuff going on he put together executive orders that really stop people from putting together discrimination suits. I'm gonna give you a perfect example, and I think I'm gonna move on. I was on a call with the National Fair Housing Alliance, right? In the conversation with the National Fair Housing Alliance, they were talking about lawsuits that they got pending. They got a lawsuit pending with Redfin, the real estate company, because they've been discriminating on who they broker for and stuff like that, right? But the issues with the judges that he put in and the executive orders that he put out, they are saying that they want people to talk to their lawyers before you start pushing cases on discrimination because they don't want to mess up the case law. It's that much of a struggle, right? So these are things that, most people don't know nothing about fair housing if you had never been in the situation, but people are testing this stuff all the time. People are getting discriminated against all the time based on race, sex, family status, which, you could be pregnant, stuff like that. It's a lot going on here. And when you go into the bare bones of the things that have happened within the last 4 years, a lot of that stuff has been gutted. And since it ain't a kitchen table issue for everybody, unless you're going through it, nobody cares, right? So I think those are my big highlights. We reforming criminal justice and environmental justice is a big thing he said he's going to push too. And I appreciate that because as I'm starting to learn more and they tying fair housing and environmental justice together, that's a big thing for Black communities, right? They dumping there, right? That's where they dumping. Rural communities and minority communities, that's where they dumping the stuff at. You wonder why people got cancer and all this stuff is because it's a super fund by there. And they didn't tell you about it. It's because they dumping all that waste. They take it to your house. They take it to the landfill. They put the landfill right by your house. In Houston, I think 6 out of the 6 landfills that y'all got are in Black communities, if I'm not mistaken.
We have a cancer cluster.
Even in suburbs, you go out to, what is it, Pearland? You got dumps out there, if I recall correctly, unless it's been moved.
Yeah,
and it's bad because it's right behind the Black neighborhood.
Right, and I got some information on that, but I ain't about to get on my soapbox about that stuff. But those are some of the highlights. He also said that he's gonna push Black teachers. It's a funding for HBCUs to push out certifications and stuff like that. But that's just a little razzle dazzle. If you go to my page, Quinn for Speaker, I actually summarized and kind of wrote it down or whatever. Y'all could go have a look see. But go ahead, I'm done.
I have one critique when it comes to all of this. Mm-hmm. And I love my HBCUs. I wanted to go to the HBCUs. HBCUs did not give me the same funding that PWIs gave me, which is why I went to the PWI. Howard offered me no money. PWI offered me a full ride scholarship. Guess where I'm going as a Black student in Detroit?
Follow the money,
going to the person that gave me the money to go to school. But I think that's part of it is like, I feel like we've gotten to this point. I feel like we definitely have to put a priority on HBCUs regardless, because we've done our HBCUs so shitty, lack of better words. We've done them shitty over the years, especially in modern terms. But I also feel like we've forgotten that there are a huge population of also Black students that go to PWIs that deal with just as much shit. And what I would say is, as much as I wanted to go to Howard, I did respect the PWI I went to, because it gave me a hard shell of life of that I didn't want to deal with before I was ready to deal with it, but it forced me to have to deal with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes good sense.
Not that it was better. I think I would have had an amazing time had I went to Howard. Still was a top choice. Wanted to go there for even grad school. Again, it comes down to money. PWIs offer Black students sometimes more money than Black schools. But I do think, it's the way I look at it is almost as similar as we have the discussion with Black men and Black women voters. We try to put Black people against each other for everything. Whether not it's school, education, whether or not it's Black males versus, even though we know certain parts overperform on the other, there's a constant competition of splitting us between each other. That I don't think everybody on this call, I think we're aware of that, like, we have these conversations, but it's more in general for a national level of, I've seen parts where it's been dangerous and that people have used it against us, if that makes sense.
It does.
Of being in a room where, oh, you didn't go to this school, so how do you feel about HBCUs? So just because I went to a HBCU doesn't mean I'm not, like, I'm against them.
Right.
It doesn't mean you need to try to turn the narrative.
Right.
And vice versa. Just because I'm a Black man doesn't mean that I voted for Donald Trump. I voted against my interests, but I feel like in the Donald Trump era, post-Obama era, that is a conversation we actually have to have with each other at this point.
Agreed.
And I think the further we get along, the more and more divisive it gets. And maybe I'm wrong, but I do want to hear your opinions, because in political, I get pushback every day, except for from Black folks of, no, that's not a real thing. And it's really only the Black folks that have these conversations amongst each other.
It's real. Quentin, you want to speak on it before?
No, go ahead.
All right, so it's real, right? Me and Kev, we went to school. Kev also went to Alcorn, but we went to school at Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Small private college, right? The other school in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the University of Alabama, right? So when you talk about that relationship, right? We, when you pledge and all this stuff, and it's a lot of things. And see, in the PWI, especially when you talk about University of Alabama, that is kind of a racist school. They had a lot of race problems. I'll say that. Yeah. They had some race issues. Old South Day. I remember the AKAs had got a house over where the White House was at, and they had put cotton balls on their lawn. Yeah, it's real. But when you talk about Alabama and Auburn, those two schools, that's where all the power in the state sits. So the people that a lot of people don't lead this state. So when you talking about the power structures within it, it might be 5th generation Auburn grads, 5th generation University of Alabama grads, and they sending their kids and they going to Go work at the family company. They got about 20 huge mansions on campus, chandeliers, winding staircases, homecoming. They tape up their gate and have rap artists or whatever perform just for them on their line. I saw Roscoe Dash at one of their little concerts. We got into their line, and that's when Roscoe Dash was hot. Waka Flocka comes there all the time.
Right.
And Kev, you could attest to this, and it is a different vibe because they kind of live within their own society and have to deal with those kind of race issues where at black school you don't, right? Everything's black, right? And it is a different vibe, and they treat you a certain way, and we treat them a certain way, and that conversation does come up. And you're right though, Chris, that it is divisive, right? Because it's only 20% of black people with a college degree anyway, probably 4% with an advanced one, right? We all are kind of in that boat of I'm not gonna call it the talented 10th, but like that situation where we are the kind of elitists throughout the race. I mean, it's real.
I'm put like even in the North, as a kid that grew up in the Midwest, grew up in the North. I think even when you get to then, about my school, I had a good black community, which PWI standard, having 5,000-6,000 black students, you doing good at that point. I could see black students every day when I go to class, no matter what type of class. But even then, you still have the same problems when you actually deal with race. I remember when Obama got elected, the one black dorm on campus that had majority black student, you had the Obama Hope picture, and every white student went and drew a Joker face on his face all throughout the black dorms. And like that was like the biggest scandal because it's like you waited till all the black students left and you drew a Joker face. Because you remember that was when what was it? Batman the Dark Knight had came out. Drew a Joker face on every single Obama face in every black dorm on campus. And so again, I say this not to differentiate, but I say I think even within our own confines, not even black, but when we talk about this political space that we operate, there are things that work against us that seek to divide us amongst each other, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm off base, but at least in my experience, there's a lot of things that I've seen people try to divide us on, especially when it comes to this election of pitting black men versus black women. Only 80% of black men voted for Biden and Harris. 92% of black. I'm sorry. What race is even within 10, 15% of us? Shut.
Yeah, you ain't lying about that.
So I have to say, but I'm saying those forces are at foot.
You're right. You're right. Agreed. So, I think
I feel like Quinn and Kevin got on this subject.
Yeah, go ahead, Kev or Quinn. I don't know.
No, I'm processing and thinking, but go ahead, Kev. I have something to say, but go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I really like. I really disagree with what you said. I mean, I do think that they use these things to kind of cause like just to like cause division. Like you said, putting black men against black women. I mean, those things like that. The whole HBCU PWI argument. I do think that it gets to a level where it becomes less about kind of that elbowing each other, like nudging each other, like they kind of that just getting on each other about you went here, to it does, because it does approach dangerous territory, and we have to remember to stay the course and understand that where we're trying to go as a people in this country. I think, we don't have to be a monolith. We don't have to agree on everything. I truly believe that. But at the same time, I ultimately do believe that we have to really understand that, look, we're trying to move forward in the direction that we're trying to go. This is counterproductive. And we have to understand what they're trying to do to us, so we can just sidestep that and stay the course. I mean, they tried to do it with every movement. They tried to do it during civil rights. They tried to do it during Reconstruction. I mean, it's every time, we move forward, there's going to be something that tries to cause discourse, or tries to paint us in a negative light. Ultimately, guys, I just feel like, that us as a people, man, we just have to stay the course and really keep our eye on the prize.
Can I ask a question, Q, if it's okay?
Yeah, go ahead. You talking about that one? Oh, sorry.
So we bring up Reconstruction, civil rights, and it's a big point because we know we have been derailed in history.
Right.
Where I am at this point, and it is hard working in the game to still keep perspective of that. Every time we have tried to advance, somehow we get derailed. Let's be honest. Something pushes us off of where we were on track for. What do you guys, this entire panel, including Q, moderating, what do you feel like gets us off that point where we're not getting derailed? Because I think we can point to a point in every century, even every 50 years, where we seemingly get farther and we get derailed off the goal again, off of everything that we built previously. How do we stop that? I'm interested to hear perspectives outside of politics of what you think will work.
Q, I want you to have this one because I know that you had something to say towards the end of that other conversation, so you could say what you wanted to say and then you can answer it or however you want to.
I mean, really, and yeah, what I have to say still applies to this. What I was gonna say real quick to the Biden plan and the HBCUs, what I was taking from this was, so I didn't go to a HBCU either. But what I was taking from this is it can get dangerous and divisive, because I think that sometimes we start focusing on, we miss a lot of Black folks because we, hear me clearly, I'm not coming for HBCUs, because we pinpoint trophies, and then those trophies that we give our attention to kind of surround us in this "see, I'm for you" type of mode. And that could be, that could be to that whole Black men that didn't vote for Biden and voted for the other candidate too. Like they got lost somewhere because we're going for these trophies. And so to your question, Chris, about like not being derailed, I think it's important for us to keep pulling other people with us. So like if we always talking about HBCUs, Kamala went in there, or so whoever's in there, she went to one to say, well, not all Black people go there. So like we have to start thinking about Black people as a whole, and again, not highlighted spheres of Black folks. Like you said, Q, we are the elitists, if you will, because we have an advanced, the privileged because we have an advanced degree. At this point, they can have it back, to be quite honest, because the loans is still hitting hard.
Man, look, and they better handle that too, because that was in the
plan.
That's why I voted, because if they don't handle that, they damn near gonna have to take my vote back.
Look, use them in the traditional sense. You can totally have it back. So I think that's how we not get derailed. It made me also think about this one thing, and this is totally not to attack my Black folks, but a couple years ago, me and my fraternity, we rented this boat. We were in, if y'all familiar with Austin, Lake Travis. So we was having a good time, Lake Travis, whatever. We're all Black. There was another boat with white people on it. You know, we friendly. Yeah, come on. Cool, cool, whatever. So they came, it was cool. They came, right? And then something happened to where one of the people jumped overboard, and we were trying to look for him, and like cops were called and all this other stuff, right? But we ended up finding him. But people really thought it was a dangerous situation because he jumped off the boat and nobody, like, he didn't come up. Well, he went to the other side, but we're all looking on the side that he's on. Mind you, it's about 40 of us on this boat. So we ain't talking about no rowboat. So, you know, there was panic on the boat, right? And when the police came, I noticed something that, and this is not a slight towards white people, nor is it towards Black people, it's just an observation of what happened. All the white people got off our boat and went back to their boat. And we were still in a chaotic, frantic state. We all not yelling at each other, but we all yelling. Everybody, like, and I was just like, I try not to blame, full disclosure, I used to be real mad at white folks. So I think at the time I did blame them, even though they really didn't do anything. I just blamed them for everything. But I've done healing, I've done processing, and I understand what it is. But I think that speaks to how do we not get derailed? That moment was so small, but I think sometimes we have a propensity of allowing a moment to just disturb us to our core, and we get chaotic. And we don't stay, to Kevin's point, focused on what it is. And again, that's not a slight. I will never get on nobody's platform and strike my Black people down. That's just an observation, something from a boat. If you look throughout history, I've noticed that. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to keep reorienting ourselves, because that's really what I had to do, especially with my anger towards white people back in the day. Reorient myself, bring myself back to the current of what's going on. Is this reality? Am I making this thing bigger than what it is? And keep pushing forward and keep bringing people with me. And so I think that's where we got to get to as a collective. And then that will prevent the derailment.
So wait, I love that one, you use my keyword for my organization, the collective. I love that. But, and y'all indulge me for a moment. If we're talking about not being derailed, and again, matter of fact, I'm gonna take it to my experience in Houston, Texas. I take it to my experience even working on campaigns in a leadership position, being patrolled with a candidate for mayor that's a top tier candidate, that is the sheriff of the entire county, and getting profiled as a Black man for knocking on a person's door in a leadership position. Because you get to the last 2 months, everybody knocking on everybody's door. But I think to the point of when we're talking about not being derailed, I feel like there is still a certain conversation that you have to have and it's not HBCU, it's not PWI, it's just being Black in this situation. And all of y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure everybody on this panel has gone through something. If you was white, you probably don't even go through that scenario. I know definitely I've been through at least 3 scenarios. I would never dealt with that situation in part. And that's the part where I am worried about of when we hear like this. When we have Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor.
Because ain't nobody talk about that Ahmaud Arbery situation.
George Floyd. And it, unfortunately, it only seems to happen in presidential and midterm years that we're having all of these things. how do we speak to that part of the Black voice? Because half of us on this panel, half of us don't want to have that conversation, if we're being honest.
I love that conversation.
In Detroit, they ain't hearing it.
I mean, I know that. Go ahead, Quinn, because I know you had something to say.
Yeah, no, I just like to add a name because we do this. I would like to throw in Elijah McClain's name in that too. That is the one.
No, you're really perfect, on point.
Yep. Yeah, his experience. I'm not
anybody else. Perfect on point with that.
Tears me down to this day. I can think of a lot of them and get past them, but Elijah McClain's experience I still tear up to this day.
So why was that so significant to you? If you don't mind me asking, what was?
So he's on the spectrum. And when he was attacked by the police, and he apologized to them for being different. Like you can hear him screaming, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm just different. I'm just different." He's on the spectrum, and so. It was, first off, I already have a heart for autistic children. I think they are one of the most beautiful type of children. Like if you ever get a chance to like just really hang out with an autistic child, like they might frustrate you, but they will make you laugh. They will make you smile. They're so loving. But for him to recognize that something was happening and for him to apologize about his own person and they were attacking him, like that's what gets me and what chokes me up every time. Like
Thank you for sharing.
Every time. So I want to add his name to it because I know we talk about Breonna and we talk about, as we should, but I think his story, I don't really have another word for it. Is not sexy in a way. It's not sensationalized in a way. I think his name gets lost in the conversation a lot, and so I just want to throw his name back in there. That was it.
No, that's perfect. It don't get talked about the way it should, amongst everything else.
Go ahead, Kev.
To Q's point, I began my career in education in special ed, and just. My heart goes out to those kids who battle with those circumstances every day. To see them day in and day out, and to see them, to see them lose confidence and gain confidence and lose confidence, and just things that they, and it'll make you appreciate it because when you have to go to work every day and convince the child that they're not stupid, they just understand the world differently. It builds a special appreciation for those type of kids and the things that they go through. So, it's just, my heart definitely goes out to him because ultimately he was just trying to explain how he was. He was just trying to no, I'm different. I'm this way, and all they saw was what they saw, and it's an all around bad situation. But it just.
But to Chris's larger point, were you asking like because you were asking a question. You were saying that to have the conversations about race or police brutality, like could you redo that?
So it's just and I have to think back through. Like I remember being in Houston when Sandra Bland died, and just like I remember when the whole conversation of Black Lives Matter was just a hashtag. We didn't want to have a conversation. It was a hashtag. It was a trending topic. It didn't mean shit to the majority of the world.
Right. Till stuff started burning in Baltimore.
Come on, man.
And so it is I'm emotional because this issue always hits close to home, even as a kid that grew up in Detroit. What most people don't realize about Detroit is we have some of the most racist suburbs that surround the city of Detroit. You caught up 1 hour outside of curfew, and it is the most painful experience to be in that situation. And so when I have this conversation, it is the conversation of how do we stay focused? Because there is a real segment of when we talk about politics, there is a whole segment of people that don't feel like we're talking to their issues. Even with now, we remember the whole conversation around defund the police, all of that, and it was demonized. It was literally demonized. I remember being on the call of defund the police was the same conversation y'all were having about Black Lives Matter for not what y'all like try to demonize it to be. It is exactly what systematic problems that y'all need to acknowledge.
Right.
So how as a race and understanding how we voted in this election, Black men, Black women, regardless, specifically on the criminal justice stand, how do we take that power? Because that is a power that we still don't realize to this day that we are still going to be suffering with. I think even when we get to a 2022 and a 2024, if we're being honest. And that's the way I could summarize it.
So I guess those kind of issues are the unifiers, right? Because I guess I got two stories to kind of round this up and give my input on it. I remember my first issue with police brutality, I was about 11, 12, I think I was 12, right? And we were on the porch in Oakland, California. If you don't know nothing about Oakland, they got some of the most racist police you ever want to see. I mean, we had, police known as like the riders that plant drugs on you, beat you up, all that. I got a bunch of stories, right? But it's the reason that the Black Panther Party was started, the racist police in Oakland, California, right? So we were all on the porch of this abandoned house, kind of like in the back streets of my neighborhood, me and, it's probably like 7 of us, something like that. Police was called, I guess, questioning us, what y'all doing here, this and that. One of them muscled up my little cousin. He probably like 10, 11, right? Short at that too, right? Muscled him up, and I'm 12. But I ain't gonna have it. Look, hey, what, you can't do that. I'm thinking they really can't do that, right? Dude must have rocked me. Boop. Head hit the wall, beep, right? And I'm just like, and hurt, like head. I really got hit for real. And it was some issues after that. They put me in the car, drove me to my mama house, because that's the house that I was technically living at. I was in my dad's neighborhood. Drove me there, and I didn't even tell my mom what happened, and they didn't. I just went to my room. And my brother, and he just told me this recently, he was probably like 14, 15. He said he called the police and tried to tell them about it. He said they told him there was nothing they could do about it. But they didn't beat on 2 kids. And as I look at my daughter, 10 years old, about to go into middle school, this is a little kid. You know what I'm saying? This is a baby. And they putting their hands on you, treating you like adults, taking you to jail. You know what I'm saying? It's really crazy. And I remember that I was working in banking. In banking you get some very deep conversations. And this white lady came into my office, and I think it was around the time that some kind of social issues was going on, but I can't remember which ones. And we was talking about Black people in a relationship with police and stuff like that, right? Older white lady worked for the federal government, and she ended up crying in my office because we were talking about the subject, and she said she didn't believe it until one of the young Black men, he was around my age, that worked for the federal government, I can't remember what department it was had went on vacation and got stopped in one of them Carolinas, and they tried to do him bad and took him to jail. I think they had roughed him up a little bit, and he ended up being friends with the mayor of Birmingham. The mayor of Birmingham, and Kev, around here, you friends with him, then they know people, and they, it's kind of small community of young Black political moving people down here.
Current mayor?
Yeah, the current mayor, Woodfin. And they made a couple calls, and I think, oh boy, he was either reprimanded or lost his job. But she said when she heard that story, she couldn't believe it. And if she like, well, how many young Black men got resources like he do? Not many, right?
Not many. I
mean, when we were kids, who we gonna call? I can't even tell my parents about it. What they gonna do? Would be upset, So, it's a lot to be said about that criminal justice thing, and I think a lot of people in the Black community will feel like that's the most serious issue that we are dealing with today. Agreed. Within that criminal justice, how people are charged, and it's real complex. Go ahead, Quinn.
Just real quick, it's not to. I have to preface these things because it is not to discount the criminal justice system, but I think another thing that probably we need to do as a collective, like Black people, is demand to not only be looked at through the lens of criminality, because I do care about criminal justice. I also care about other things too, so I think that those are things that we have to start demanding for our people in these positions of power, to your point, Q, to speak to us about as well. Because I care about climate. Like, I like my lungs. I want them to bring in clean air. I like the roads I drive on. I care about international affairs. I really not rather have another 9/11. Like, those are things I care about as well. But I do think a lot of times we allow, and sometimes we move in that space too, because we've been disproportionately affected by the criminal justice system. But we gotta stop allowing these people to only view our concerns through the lens of criminality, because that's just not it.
And other negative things as well, right?
Can I speak to that point?
Go ahead, Chris.
I feel like we have the lens of criminality. We also have the lens of education, which nobody ever speaks to. And we have a lens of economic disparity that nobody really speaks to. You talk about small business, you talk about the livable wage versus a minimum wage. Regardless, when I talk about all these issues, one of the things that stands that we took, and it partially got adopted from our time with the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, but the Black family is the worst family.
As far as this, and I guess I want to clear it up before people take your stuff. Like, demographically, when you talk about economics, when you talk about single mothers, when you talk about kids raised by grandparents, those kind of things that are really important. And I used to play in those demographics a lot in my job at Alabama A&M, and it's rough,
And so our whole thing was, if you build up the Black family, you build up America, period. Because we're the worst treated family in America. Almost every state, every major state that you recognize, Black people in the Black family are almost always at the bottom of statistics. Whether or not you want to talk about education, criminal justice, economics, home ownership, we rate last. It's not even a comparison.
No, it ain't even close.
I think back to the neighborhood I grew up in Michigan, in Detroit, upper middle class neighborhood, ain't even got a bank in it. today. We had 3 banks when I was growing up. Not one single bank exists in that neighborhood.
Underbanked. That is a huge deal.
Over 20
Underbanked.
years, we went from 3 major banks to not one in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's where that
a lot.
CRA comes in too, right? Because
So
when you're underbanked, nobody's held
when
responsible.
we have this conversation, I want us to be also honest about like we do not deal with the Black family and the Black community in the same ends. And so while I applaud everything that we've said about this election and everything that we do in this election, and people talk about Black people deliver the vote, we won't forget. Black women deliver the vote. I think that won't be forgotten. What I need you to understand, the Black community has been struggling, not because we're not trying, because literally every single time we get a chance to get a tag, the finish line's pushed 10 yards back again.
Mm-hmm.
And that you cannot be American in the United States of America and not acknowledge that you have races that every time we almost get to the finish line, it's pushed ahead of us. Oh, you only got a few more feet to go. I'm there. No, 2 more feet. Bitch, I'm there. 4 more feet. There. No. You finish this last thing, I promise you will be. That is the story of the Black experience in America. Whether or not you talk about Tulsa, whether or not you talk about Newark, the riots in Detroit, it does not matter how you carve up our experience as a Black person, whether or not you want to engage in politics. Politics is your life, even if you don't like it. And those of us fighting in it, it is hard. This sucks. It sucks. I always appreciate folks like y'all because y'all get to talk unapologetically. And I have to keep a filter to the degree of which I talk. Wow. But when I say it sucks advocating for these issues because you know systematically, and what I always try to experience, you can hate all of us that work on the inside, but guess what? If some of us aren't on the inside, I guarantee you, you're not knocking down that gate from the outside. It takes both of us from the outside and the inside to get one.
And that's the important part. It's a lot of different angles. It's a lot of different angles.
I think that some of Joe Biden's messaging directly reflected Simone Sanders. I mean, if he don't have Simone Sanders, his messaging isn't that way. His messaging is that.
What? Hey, look.
whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, you don't have Joe Biden going on Breakfast Club saying you ain't Black without no Simone Sanders. Like, no, he heard one of them say that. Then he was like, oh, you don't have him saying that. Come on now. So you need those people on the inside as well as people on the outside. Like, definitely.
And can we stand Simone Sanders real quick? Because sis took a lot of flack from jumping ship from Bernie Sanders to Joe Biden, and sis
and she got him right.
Right.
She got him together. He ain't winning.
Really, she made the right calculation. So let's stand Simone Sanders.
I rocked with it. I understand. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a Bernie supporter, but I understand that what she did what needed to be done, and it was successful. She ran a great campaign. Can't knock it at all.
Yeah. And so while we talking about campaigns, we almost at that 2-hour mark, but I did not want to have this conversation without asking Chris Scott about the progression of the collective PAC in Black politics. If you on my podcast, you know that me, Kev, and Chris had a very long conversation about the importance of Black political power, political capital. I quoted from one of my community development books, that political capital is the access to decision making, right? So it's something that we have to have. It's not a choice. We have to have it, right? So in Chris's field and in his role and his job, he plays a very important one. So for the people that didn't know and didn't hear, can you explain what you do, who you work for, and since now we're kind of on that other side of the election, let us know what happened. How did it go?
So, I work for the Collective PAC. I'm the national political director. Um, and so the PAC was founded in 2016 by Stephanie Brown James, Quinn James, husband and wife. And it was founded on the basis of we don't just lack parity and equality when it comes to Congress, we lack it at every single level of government. When you talk about Black folks, especially when you get to statewide government and even state legislators, depending on what state you're talking about. So until 2020, we had elected 55 Black people, federal, local. When you talk about the federal,
You had broke up a little bit. You had, and I feel like that was a good part.
my bad.
55 what?
55 Black people from 2016 to 2018, 19 have been elected by the Collective PAC. Mm-hmm. Every new Black member of Congress that's been elected since 2018, every single one of them was endorsed by the Collective, and most of them were endorsed early. That includes Ayanna Pressley, who challenged white Democratic male. That includes Bowman in 2020. That comes like we will go out on a limb because we believe in building Black political. What we got to this year, and we're still kind of in ballots, we have had 65 victories in this year alone. The year 2020, which is why we coined it like the year of the Black candidate. 65 victories. We endorsed over 151 of our candidates were on the November ballot. When you talk about municipal, local level, we took 3 losses the entire year. When you talk about the state legislative, over a quarter of our candidates are state legislators now. And so for us, when we talk about building Black political power, that is how you do it. I love the CBC. I love a lot of organizations that do this work. There's only one organization that actually works at every single level of government, and that is ours. And so I am proud. I say to this day, this is the best damn job I've ever had, running an organization on the political side like this, where I get to unapologetically endorse Black candidates that are about the cause, that want to not only move a district forward, but they're unapologetic about being Black in it. And I have to say that because that's a word to that. It's not just about moving the district forward. It's about being willing to be your authentic Black self in a space that we have not always occupied. And so for us, when we tell our story, and instead of full circle, we say full term, because in one presidential term, either first or the second candidate we endorsed when the organization was created, Kamala Harris, when she was running for U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. 4 years later, she's about to be the vice president of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. My first event that I did with this organization when I joined it this year, Kamala Harris was a part of it. But on the same panel where I had Kim Fox, probably labeled the most progressive prosecutor in our country, Marilyn Strickland, Kim Gardner in St. Louis, like, we're not playing these games. You slip up, you have an opportunity for a Black person to get through, you're lacking on policy, you can trust that we're going to be there. But in the actuality, and this will be the last part I say, an organization like ours should not have to exist. We exist because we still have a democracy in America that does not want to deal with the representation that it deserves to actually have. And this year, we should have reached political parity, but even after this year, even if we don't get the flip state, you'll get to 12% in the United States House. 13% of the population in the United States is Black. At the very least, 13% in the House of Representatives and in the U.S. Senate should be Black. But when you talk about those conversations, the U.S. Senate drags down the House number. The House is at about 12.5% after this. And the U.S. Senate still has 3 Black people and has only ever elected Black people out of 1,900 U.S. senators.
You said how many Black people they did?
10 Black folks out of 19. Let that sink in. You had 1,900 U.S. senators, and you've only ever had 10 Black people in the entire history of the United States of America.
You know, the Senate, that's where the decisions are made. You know, they gatekeeping. Go ahead, Kev.
Didn't Alabama just select the football coaches?
Man, look, first of all, let's just call that what it is. And since I know some people ain't down here, let me let you know something. Not only did Alabama select Auburn football coach as
Tommy Tuberville
senator. First of all, this man was not a winning football coach. Let's just start there. Second of all, this man did not debate. He did not have policy. He just followed behind Trump's policy. He did not debate. He did not have policy. And let's go take it a step further. I'm going to take it a step further with the Alabama ballots and what's going on down here, right? There were 24 things that you could vote on as far as positions in Madison County, Alabama. That's where I stay. Huntsville up top at North Alabama. How many Democrats do you think were running? So out of 24, have a guess of how many of those races were contested.
About 15, 16.
Quinn, what you think?
I was gonna say 10.
Chris?
I'm not guessing. I have a candidate, so
2.
Like I'm removed from this conversation.
2. Of 24, 22 was uncontested, bruh. It was a congressional seat. Mo Brooks' congressional seat ran uncontested.
What seat was that?
The Congress.
Mo Brooks. Which one?
I don't know.
We actually endorsed 3 Alabama districts this year.
Right. But so even people in Jefferson County where Birmingham is, Birmingham has like 73% Black people. And they didn't even have a lot of candidates on their ballot running. We ain't just talking about running Black, running Democratic, period. I'm just talking about party contested seats. So and that puts in context what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, because she had been planning this 10 years out, longer than that. Telling people that the state was gonna go blue. Go ahead, Kev.
You know what's funny, Q? I either you said it or somebody else said it. Somebody else said that I bet you they wish they wouldn't have cheated her out of that doggone governor seat now.
That
Because if she was the
I
governor,
said it. I bet they
if she
wish
was
she
the
was
governor, she
governor
wouldn't have had
now.
time to do all that. So she put in work. You hear me?
They said they register 800,000 people.
But see, that's what because you gotta have like. I think a lot of our people, and this, I guess I'm spiraling a little bit, but I think a lot of our people have been convinced that they are powerless. So they live in a state of political hopelessness, and because of that, they just like, oh, okay, I ain't gonna even bother with it. I mean, my mom was that way, and I'm like, mama, like, I understand, like, we live in Texas, but still, mama, like, I get it. Harris County, all right, mama, I hear you. But at the same time,
I got a word on
you gotta try. Like, you can't just give it up. Like,
yeah.
Y'all was real down in 2014.
What you mean?
And Harris County in general in Texas, people was not feeling trying to vote Democrat. Is the only Democrat on the block. But, and I say this to the point of Stacey Abrams, it is the long game. Turning deep South states that ain't turned blue since the 1960s, that's going to be a 6 to 8 year project, to be honest.
But this is chess,
because
not
first you got to get people in the mindset of we can do this shit. And I remember being in Houston, Texas, and half the things I would hear on the door was like, I could vote for Wendy Davis or anybody else. Ain't nobody else voting for her. And then even though I wasn't there, the conversation in 2018, I still don't think Beto O'Rourke would win. But you know what? Like, I feel like I got a little bit more of a voice. And now you get to 2020. And so our whole thing was in Texas was, even though people said it was for 2014, realistically, I think most of Black people was like, we ain't getting this in 2014. 2022 is probably your best bet to have a chance at flip in Texas, because it takes time to build a culture of mentally you think that your vote matters in that state. And that's what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia. She made people feel like they actually mattered the way that they have never felt like they mattered before. And if you want to change your electorate, it starts mentally in thinking that you could change place.
And understand that these states have a systematic state of voter suppression, right? So these things have been going on for a very long time. These southern states have always had large percentages of Black people. The most Black people in any states, they're gonna stay in the South. Even Alabama, 30% Black. California ain't got that many Black people. I mean, as far as volume, but not percentage, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So the South, they understand that they have to suppress the vote to maintain power, right? And I think that people don't want to address the fact that we are still fighting that fight when it comes to voter representation, voter suppression, stuff like that in these southern states. That stuff is still going on. Those MLK fights, those John Lewis's fights, they still going on. Go ahead, Quinn.
So then how do we change that, right? Because I'm very solution oriented. And I sit here and I wonder, because I do, we do have these discussions. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we change that? Because I had an elder statesman say to me probably last week, y'all go out there and run, because we're gonna be here and we're gonna support you. And my rebuttal to this statement was, you say that, but there's a lot of purity politics at play, right? Because I think I know how we could change this, but there are a lot of young people, or whatever you consider young, that would love to run, that would love to get involved. But there have been gatekeepers, not only from the system, but then our own ecosystem. There's, gatekeepers. So it's like, I asked the question, how do we change that? I already have my answer. But I'm just wondering, like, because Chris, okay, so you have the pack. Do you all, and I don't know if you can answer this, I'm gonna just ask it, do you all play into that purity politics to where your candidate has to fit a mold? Because I know people that will run.
So we endorse our biggest claim. We want you unapologetically Black.
Mm-hmm.
You can be moderate, you can be progressive, your answers gotta match up with you're pushing the Black community for it first.
Mm-hmm.
One priority. We get you serve everybody, but will you serve Black folks?
Yeah, but I feel like what Quentin is saying does it have to be this clean cut brother with you know what I'm saying?
No,
because
so what I would say with that is like we have our Corey Bushes, our Jamal Bowmans, our Charles Bookers.
We don't know these folks, so you gotta
Okay.
generalize them.
Corey Bush.
No, we know Corey Bush now.
Like the mother of the movement when it comes to like Ferguson, St. Louis, all of that.
Okay.
Jamal Bowman, upset Elliot Engel in New York. Ayanna Pressley, upset white Democrat in Massachusetts. We have made a living on we want to get more representation, but we're also not scared to challenge the establishment. And that's a very unique lane that we get to fill.
Do you all?
A lot of organizations have not been able to fill that. And we can say we're not only doing it at Congress, we're doing it at every single level. Look at our 64 candidates that won, 26 of them are the first ever Black person to ever hold that seat. Ever. At least 10 of them, first ever Black person to hold that seat in the entire state. We make our living a killing, not just on endorsing Black folks, but endorsing change makers that are unapologetically Black, that are willing. That is why I can say I love the job I do.
That you said they willing to what? You said they willing to what?
They're willing to unapologetically work for when it comes to advancing our community. But it's the biggest reason why I can say it's the best job I've ever had, and I have no regrets of taking this job over any other offer, because I get to unapologetically do what I was raised to do in a city where I have a mom from Chicago, a dad from St. Louis, and I was born in Detroit, and I get to work for dope ass Black people on a regular daily basis and get to elect them to whatever office they want. You can't compete with me.
Yeah.
There's no value that you could put to me of being able to make it equal and then support them once they get into office, because that's the other part. We get these people in the office, and how many times do we see Black people lose office because they're not supported by the party? And that's the other part of my work that I enjoy. I get these people elected, and then I get to support them and make sure they stay elected and make sure they stay accountable. Compared to that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't compare to that.
Have you all challenged incumbents that are Black?
So that's a new space. Typically, we have not taken the stance of we challenge more on seats where we don't have multiple Black people running. Because in the early years, I think it's easier to pick off seats that you don't have Black people than to challenge other Black folks.
Mhm.
But it's also something that we're looking at of you have to pay attention to it. I think where we are now, there are still enough where we can go after non-Black incumbents. But I think if we get the best at our job, it's something that eventually we'll have to evaluate. Because once you reach parity in Congress and stuff like that, and when I say parity for anybody that's watching, that's just the equal number, it being representative of the population that we have in the US. What's the conversation then?
Yeah.
Like, we can talk about, once we get past Congress, we know we're vastly underrepresented in executive offices, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. We know that 95% of prosecutors in the country are still white. So I think when it comes to us, I think even for the races that we want to get involved in, I put like this: if there's 2 quality Black candidates and it's a seat that will allow for the best of 2, and best example I could do is the Washington 10th congressional district. We had 2 outstanding Black candidates. We endorsed them both. It's the best scenario.
Okay.
Our thought was, you get 2 Black people in, it's guaranteed to be a Black seat, but hands above everything else. I think the difference that we make is we only endorse Black people. Also, no other Black PAC can make that claim in the country.
And I mean, I think it's important work to be done within that space, because as we all know,
I welcome critiques, but
I mean, and I think that Quentin was asking some good questions, because there are some Black gatekeepers, people that, because when you talk about situations like, a lot of people are talking about term limits and stuff like that, there are people, it's Black people, I don't know no names, so I'm not gonna name none, but that mirror that issue that you have with a Lindsey Graham that's been there for 28 years but only put out 2 bills. Why are you there? People like a Mitch McConnell that is representing the poorest state of America, but he's the richest senator in America. Why are you there? You know what I'm saying? So I think when we have these discussions, and then,
but also to that point, we endorsed Charles Booker before anybody else endorsed him. We endorsed Jamie Harrison in South Carolina before anybody else. So again, I also go, we make a great living betting on Black folks before you thought they were trending topics for you.
Real quick, y'all think Booker would have took McConnell?
I think,
all right, let's go.
Personally, as not a representative, I think I'll speak for the whole, but I'm gonna say it politically correct. Personally, I think Charles Booker, he built a movement, which is why he's still relevant.
Right.
I think movements last forever. Moments are exactly how their stance.
Yeah.
He built a movement. I don't think it's happenstance that he blew up. And I think if he had one more week, he would have been the Democratic nominee and you would have had a completely different election.
I can see that. I can see it.
And I could say that because I've been on record of, I think Charles Booker was the better candidate.
I mean, I think that all this kind of circles back into, people not voting in their best interest. It's not just a Black people thing, it's an everybody thing. I mean, I don't personally understand how, if you're in the poorest state of America, how could you have the richest senator in America? It just doesn't make sense. Did he come in there with money? And if he did, how come he hasn't been advocating for everybody else to get money? Because ain't no way that he is the most powerful senator in the United States, picking what goes to the floor, he ain't made nothing happen for his district to make sure that they can have some bread. That don't make sense. When you talk about South Carolina, when you got Lindsey Graham in there, and he has been there for 25 plus years and only passed 2 bills, bro, what are you doing there? Like,
Right.
seriously though, like, what are you doing there for real?
Right.
And I mean, you know, people gotta understand policy and stuff like that. But it there really has to be some civic education going around, not even just with, you know, voter education and when it has to do with Black people, but poor people. You know what I'm saying? Like, poor people in general. I don't know, man. I could get on my soapbox about that because I'm not just about Black people, but very anti-poverty based. I mean, that's what my first job was in. Anti-poverty. That's the kind of work I like to do. And staying in Alabama, I completely understand that. It's a whole bunch of poor white people here, and their opinions are valid too. And they really going through the same things that we going through. They got murder problems. They got drug problems. They got jail problems. They got job problems. They got housing problems. They got all those same problems. But y'all, we have kind of hit in or passing that 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
I feel like
I just realized.
I feel like we might have to do a part 2 of this soon.
Definitely.
But is there anything that you guys want to say? You know,
I don't. I'm drawing blanks, man.
All right, so y'all want to plug y'all stuff? Because that I do want y'all to do. Make sure y'all use the platform to plug y'all stuff.
Go visit thecollectivepact.org. If you are in the state of Georgia watching this, please register to vote. If you're not registered, you have until December 7th. If you are registered, please to go take your butt to vote. There's too much on the line, and we cannot afford for you not to vote. So that's my shameless plug.
And that whole Black plan that we discussed, they need the Senate for that. So if you liked anything that I brought up, and I got a whole list of stuff that I didn't bring up, I just pulled the highlights. So, you know, and what, Quentin, you look like you was gonna say your spiel next and plug your spiel.
I mean, Chris took mine with Georgia because I was like, look, Georgia. So we'll be highlighting that a lot, or I'll be talking about that a lot on my various platforms, to get people civically educated so that we don't have to have this conversation in 4 years about what they didn't do if they don't have a Senate to do something. So definitely, you can follow me on Instagram at the Q with Q, where we talk political shenanigans and just get you caught up with the day's events. I don't think I have anything else to plug right now. Yeah, that's it right now. I think I'm still coming down from the election because I'm about to go on.
And I mean, in that Instagram that you do, bro, that is fire, bro. You can 650 straight to the fire, bro, fire. So if ain't nobody told you, bro, it's fire.
Thank you.
Kev.
Oh, man, y'all can follow me on Instagram at KB2Trill. Yeah, man. I just again, Q, I follow you, man. I love it, man. And keep doing your work, man. Hey, and I need a book too, man. For real, I appreciate everything you do, man.
Oh, thank you. Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and before I sign off, I just want to make sure that people are watching that regular presidential election. There's some other stuff going on right now. From what I heard, while they're talking about counting the votes, they're really just trying to postpone everything to bring things to the House of Representatives. And how I understand it is they're trying to make sure that the count waits until December 6th. At the point that the count isn't in at December 6th, then it goes to the House of Representatives. But it's not going to go to the individuals on the House of Representatives because we know that the Democrats run the House of Representatives. I guess it goes to a state pick, and the state picks the delegates, which most states are Republican states. So at that point, they pick, and they're going to be able to pick no matter what the Electoral College says and no matter what the popular vote says, what happens. So from my understanding, that's what they're gunning for. I don't know if it's going to happen. And if that happens, bro, this whole country going to flip upside down. So I don't really believe that it's going to happen, but that's their plan. So when you hear about this rhetoric and here they want to recount this, recount that, they lawsuit here, lawsuit there. They don't think they're going to win the lawsuits. They're playing a different kind of game here. So it's something else to pay attention to. You guys have sat here and listened to a awesome, dope episode of Popp'n Politics. I appreciate everybody that's been on here. Like and to subscribe on my YouTube. Follow the podcast, and thank you. And thank y'all for helping out, man. I really appreciate it.
Enjoyed it. Y'all have a good night.
All right, y'all too.